word to your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying wren, fast vertical stems, and professors from Penn watching eagles eat and pray like bazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia, Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some Birds with Friends. The early bird gets the worm, but prefers getting turned like a turn on some Birds with Friends. Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
I don't call it the off season. I call it the non-playing season.
Is that what you say when people, normies ask you about what you do in the off season? You say it's not the off season, it's the non-playing season.
I don't correct them, but I'll call it the non-playing season.
Okay.
I'll feel like there's the playing season.
The NPO.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends on a Saturday morning. Bo Wulf, Marissa Dunn, Zach Berman. It is 12:36 a.m. This is bright and early. This is bright and bushy-tailed, Zach. This is nothing. We're in good shape. This is an hour and a half earlier than last night.
It's good to see you. I love draft weekend. Love draft podcasts. Love talking about the draft. Love talking football. Let's get right to it.
Yeah, we had an extended Malcolm Gladwell discussion before we hit record, which we can get into. But listen, this is night 2. This is the tough part. This is the mud of the marathon of draft weekend, right? Night 1, you got excited. Night 2, like, oh, we've got a long day 3 to go. Plus, it's a noon start tomorrow. And so even though Zach subjects himself to the 2 hours of sleep last night and won't even try to take a nap, he doesn't even have that option tomorrow. And so we gotta work through this one. We gotta manufacture the energy. We gotta be the thermostat, not the thermometer, Zach.
In everything you do, not just tonight, every day, right?
That was the least thermostat in everything you do.
I'm a big fan of day 2 relative. So typically day 1, you're not dealing with 2 draft picks. We were fortunate that we had 2 draft picks to discuss yesterday. But on day 2, you usually have at least 2 picks to discuss. So there's more players. I find the second round always to be intriguing. The Eagles didn't draft in the second round tonight, so it was a little different. But I find that the second round to be like a real fertile area for finding good players.
Well, speaking of fertility, Marissa, how are you?
I'm doing good. I did get a nap in today, so that was very nice. Did you get one, Bo?
Well, I don't know if that I got a nap as much as I got the second sleep after I slept for 2 or 3 hours, whatever, in the basement, and then as the kids were getting up, then I went upstairs to the bed and got probably 2 more hours.
Okay,
yeah.
That's something. I mean, better than Zach. He only got 3 hours of sleep.
What did you do, Zach? You got your 2.5, and that was that.
Yeah, then I tried to fall, but yeah, I did have Celsius. I had apple prickly pear, which was a good combination.
Which you liked?
Yes, I did. I tried to decompress for an hour, and it didn't.
What does
work.
that involve? What does that entail?
What does that entail? It entails sitting down without my computer in front of me. But
Mulaney?
did not have Mulaney, but I kept having thoughts that I wanted to look up or explore. So
tough to be so smart,
I mean,
those critical thinking skills never shut off.
Yeah, critical thinking is an important characteristic.
I do have to say, I thought you were working through it tonight. You were in good shape. You had all the energy, and then right as you were sending me your grades, the way you pulled back and looked at me was like, oh, I was like, Zach has just hit his line. He's just realized that he needs some sleep.
No, I'm good, and I love doing the pod. I do enjoy the pod earlier in the day, but that's for a different conversation. I think that face was more every time we had to walk back and forth outside, you get soaked, right? So I was not.
Now, are you still wearing the same wet jacket that you were wearing earlier?
Yeah,
or did you put on a new jacket?
No, I literally got home and got right into this chair. I have not. I have not passed go. I've not collected $200. I have just. I got home, ran right into this chair. My hair is probably still wet from being outside. So.
Okay, we have 2 picks to talk about. I have one other Zach thing that I'd like to discuss, but we can hold that for after we start talking about these players. The Eagles made 2 picks today. They started by trading down from 62, trading down 3 spots to 65, picking up a 6th round pick and a 7th round pick in the process. Seemed like a very good little piece of business. Howie Roseman mentioned that the team has had some success with those late round picks, which is true. I think more so than most teams. They've done a very good job in the 6th and 7th round, extricating value. And he also mentioned that, there's something to be said for the scouts spending all their time on the road all year. They get to come in on day 3 and know they have 4 picks instead of 2 picks, give them a little bump. I think that's good. I also think just process wise, getting 2 picks for moving down 3 spots is good business. It's not like they missed a guy that they were necessarily targeting.
Exactly.
There. Yeah. So good job. And then they had back-to-back picks. So you thought that maybe they would trade down from one of those 2 picks and pick up some more mid-round capital if they could, but it seemed like they didn't want to do that. And they took Alabama offensive lineman Tyler Steen with the first of those 2 picks, and Illinois safety Sidney Brown with the second of those 2 picks. Zach, why don't we start with Steen, who I am sort of thinking about this, and tell me if you disagree with the Steen pick was, we need an offensive lineman. We think we need an offensive lineman for depth purposes, maybe a future guard. He is the best offensive lineman available. Whereas with Sidney Brown, it was like, boy, do we love this guy. We fell in love with this guy. We need to take this guy. But let's start with Steen.
Well, no, to your point, and we could just give a quick big picture overview, because I think the way you framed it does make sense. And I would say this was more of a scout and develop day than a consensus day. And what I mean by that is the 2 picks they made on Thursday night were almost obvious picks to make. And Howie Roseman said even the first round they're like organizational decisions, right? There's so much that goes into it. But the picks were fairly clear. Where the Eagles were picking tonight and the players that they picked tonight, frankly, it wasn't like, man, you need to take this guy here or else. Both players were drafted higher than consensus big board rankings, right? Both players were drafted higher than Dane Brugler's rankings. So
I think Steen was about level with consensus.
I think he was a little. I mean, he was what, 93 on Dane's big board, and then I got to look up the consensus rankings. But I think he was.
I think that now just to go deep on the offensive line. So DeJuan Jones would have been the consensus top guy there, but he went completely undrafted.
Yes.
So there's some kind of disconnect between what the league knows about him, or what they think they know about him, and what people thought from the outside, whether that's medical or something else. But I think that Steen was sort of seen as the drop off there, and the round plays out that way. Steen goes at 65. There is not another offensive lineman who goes off the board until Wanya Morris at 92. And then there's only one other offensive lineman, and that's the center Ricky Stromberg, who goes at 97. So there are only 3 offensive linemen taken in the entire 3rd round. I think the Eagles sort of viewed Steen as like the last guy who was worthwhile there.
Yes. Yeah. So on a Reef's consensus big board, he was 94. So he went higher than
a little
that.
Bit, yeah.
But
if you sort of take into account
from
that
a positional
and that DeJuan Jones didn't go, that he would then get pushed up. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, in offensive line, so we're starting with Steen.
Let's talk about the player.
And this might be a simplistic way to view it. I think Jeff Stoutland has earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to evaluating offensive linemen. When it comes to drafting offensive linemen, they have a good record in drafting, developing. Every player on their offensive line, except for Jason Kelsey, was drafted or signed by Jeff Stoutland, and Kelsey's been here for a decade of Jeff Stoutland. So we'll give him, credit there too.
And they've literally they've never had a bust offensive lineman under guys drafted under Stoutland. Everybody has worked out, has outperformed their draft status basically,
except for Dillard. But there were circumstances associated with that.
Except for the guy that took the highest.
Yeah. No. So the way I see it with him is this really strikes me as a Jack Driscoll type pick. What's up, Josh? I appreciate you watching.
For the audio listeners,
Josh
Tolentino. ZB powered by Celsius.
Yes. So I want to be powered by whatever Josh is. So I'll say that it's a Jack Driscoll type pick, and Jack Driscoll was
push-ups and ball. That's what he's powered by.
Yeah, I can't dunk, so I want what he has. Driscoll was a fourth round pick, so that's where a difference. You're looking top of the third round, and frankly, they traded down from the bottom of the second round. But Driscoll played offensive tackle in college because of arm length, kind of got moved inside. That's what the Eagles are thinking with Steen. I mean, if you look at just the starting experience he has, 4 years starting between Vanderbilt and Alabama, you look at the track record of Alabama left tackles, the 3 tackles before him were all first-round picks: Evan Neal, Alex Leatherwood, Jonah Williams. Jeff Stoutland has strong connections to Alabama. So
all of them potentially disappointments in the pros, however. But
I don't think Evan Neal. Did you say Evan Neal's been a disappointment?
I think he had a bad rookie year. I mean, it was only 1 year, but
okay. So I think that in Steen's case, you're trusting Stoutland, and this is the third year that the Eagles have used their top pick on day 2 on an offensive lineman. And the past 2 times they kind of looked ahead. It didn't work that way with Landon Dickerson, but you figured this might be Brandon Brooks's last year. Dickerson could take over for him. Last year, Cam Jurgens. You figured it might be Jason Kelsey's last year. Cam Jurgens can take over thereafter. We're both expecting Cam Jurgens to be the starting right guard this year.
Well, let's talk about this briefly. Do you think there's any chance that Steen is going into camp competing for that job head to head? Or do you think he's being groomed right away to be sort of a versatile backup?
I mean, my expectation for him this year is versatile backup this year, and then starting right guard strong candidate in 2024. That said, I'm less sold on Jurgens at right guard than you've seemed to be.
I think it's done and dusted. I think Jurgens is the right guard.
Yes,
he's going to be the day 1 of training camp right guard, and no one else is ever going to barring injuries. No one else is taking a rep there all camp long. That's what I think is going to happen.
And what I'm asking is there a chance, barring that he's not good there, or are you utterly convinced he's going to be good there?
I'm convinced that Stoutland thinks he will be good there, and that's all that matters.
Because even in 2020, when Andre Dillard was set to be the left tackle, he got hurt, right? But even in camp, you were like, "Ooh, is this really going to work out?"
Yeah,
right?
That's fair.
And so you don't know if that's, but
I'm more bullish on him than I was on Dillard. Yeah,
exactly. So I'm with you there in terms of
we're gonna go ahead and block this guy who's being horny on Maine in the chat. We'll put him in timeout at least.
Okay, so
I blocked him.
Thank you.
So I'm expecting Jurgens to be the right guard. I think that you have Steen in this Jack Driscoll role this season, and then if Kelsey retires, and we've been talking about if Kelsey retires for a few years, Jurgens bounces inside, and you hope that Steen can be your starting right guard in 2024. Certainly, the 65th pick in the draft, you're hoping can become a starting caliber player for you, right? That's
I mean, no doubt. If he is not, if we stipulate that this is Jason Kelsey's last year, if Steen is not a starter next year, it's a disappointment.
You're hoping the floor is Jack Driscoll, right? You're hoping the floor is your a swing guard tackle who can be a spot starter for you, but you're probably looking to draft over him for your full-time starter. That's what you're hoping the floor is. And you're hoping the ceiling, or the best case scenario, is Isaac Seumalo. right, is a guy who was a 3rd-round pick for the Eagles who becomes a 2-contract player for you, right? I mean, that was a really good outcome in the 3rd round, but that's the way you're probably thinking with this 3rd-round pick. So again, I don't know as much. I will defer to Jeff Stoutland. I think he's earned the benefit of the doubt there. I didn't really know how to grade it. Like, I was kind of looking at, big board rankings, and then I'm looking at what's there. I'm wondering, could you have traded down and still taken him? But this was considered a bad tackle draft class after
there
the
seems
top
to be a
guys.
big gap, between him and then your Blake Freelands of the world, who are much more speculative. The book on Steen, as you said, he started at Vanderbilt. His first year, he was a defensive lineman. Then they moved him to right tackle, where he started for his entire redshirt freshman year, played left tackle his next 2 years, then transferred to Alabama for his senior year, was second team All-SEC. As you said, he's not, he's a 5-year player, but he's not super old. He'll be 23 in June. The reason that he is sort of projected as a guard is he does have short arms.
Relatively speaking,
which were 8th percentile for tackles. He otherwise tested pretty well at the combine for his size. He went to the Senior Bowl and played primarily guard, and all reports are that he was pretty impressive down there and showcased the versatility that you thought might be theoretical, and maybe it's a little bit more in practice. So I think that's what the Eagles are banking on, is that this guy can potentially fill in, and as you said, sort of be like Jack Driscoll, but a little bit better, and maybe more like solidly starter caliber.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think as you evaluate the pick, I think you're right. You sort of have to give Stoutland the benefit of the doubt on picking these guys, and obviously you believe that he can develop them as best as they can. He doesn't have the outlier traits that you might have thought that Stoutland prefers.
Yes.
It seems more like a base hit than a swing for the fences.
100%. Exactly. That's why I struggled with the grade.
Yeah, and I think the only thing that you would nitpick is, how desperate were you to add an offensive lineman here? And I think there is the fear of offensive line injury torpedoing this promising season. You want to have some insurance. It's not necessarily like you have other, need positions, but would a running back here have made a higher impact on the season over his rookie, or the next few seasons over the rookie contract? Would a wide receiver have added some juice to the offense, or would a linebacker have been able to step in and start right away, or a cornerback adding to the depth? I don't know. It is, as Howie Roseman said tonight, it is the organizational emphasis. This is how they want to build the team. This is how they've gotten in this place to begin with. So you can say, do what you got to do. That's fine. It's hard to get upset about this pick. I think it's a totally viable option, and fits what they do.
Yes. And to follow up to that too, you're not drafting again until the 6th round, right? So it's really hard to find a tackle.
Well, that's what you could.
Yeah, you could trade back. Is what I'm saying.
Is that right? Exactly.
So that's.
And I guess you're also evaluating the trade back that they did make within the pick, and I think that was good business.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if they took Steen 3 picks earlier,
right.
he clearly was going to be there 3 picks later, and you don't know. There wasn't this massive run on offensive tackles, like you said a few moments ago either. So could they have traded back a little more? Maybe so. Maybe someone else would have liked Steen. That's why I don't like in the 3rd round last year. I was saying, man, they got Nakobe Dean, right? This is such a great pick, that kind of thing. I'm not saying that about Steen. I don't think it's a bad pick. I'm not like, whoa, is this Curtis Marsh? And I feel bad that Curtis Marsh is catching a stray. I didn't cover Curtis Marsh. I was just thinking of a 3rd round pick when people were like, what are they doing here?
Poor guy.
I view it as this is an important position. They probably pushed the position up on the board. Jeff Stoutland can scout them, but we thought they were going to come out with an offensive lineman, and they came out with an offensive lineman.
Just for the record, for the to think about it forever, for the Donahoe fans, the 3 players who went in the interim between when they traded down and when they picked Tyler Steen, the Texans moved into the spot for Juice Scruggs, who one of my favorite names in the draft, but a guy who was consensus like a 5th round pick. They're trading up for him. So that's good business by them. Then Marvin Mims.
Your guy.
I love Marvin Mims.
Your boy.
He goes to Denver. And
He's
then
yours.
at the top of the 3rd round is South Carolina defensive tackle Zach Pickens with 2 C's. So there you go. I don't think any of those guys are keeping the Eagles up at night. So as shout out to Daniel Gallen, who says shout out to Juice. Love a Danny Gallen. Go Terps. All right. Anything else on Steen? Anything else that we heard from Howie Roseman or Nick Sirianni about Steen that you thought was notable?
Some interesting. Well, from talking to Steen, am I getting feedback in the background?
I think you're doing a great job. That's my feedback.
No, just
I'm hearing an echo.
Touching the mic.
Sorry, but I am hearing an echo.
Okay. Can he play through it? Can he fight through, or is he going to be?
Yeah, so I'll keep rolling here.
Can you still hear it?
Do you want to do a refresh? Do you want to do a reload? And Marissa,
I need a reload here. Yeah, if you can give me 30 seconds here.
Yep.
Okay.
See you in a little bit, Zach.
He's already tired. We don't want to, throw.
How's Michael's draft going so far?
Going good. He watched with a few friends on the team tonight. I mean, it was more just like hanging out. But yeah, the Browns got a defensive tackle and
Cedric Tillman. All right, no offensive lineman. That's good so far.
yes, definitely.
Oh, but they got a lot of picks tomorrow. 2 4s, 2 5s, a 6th, and a 7th.
Yeah, big day tomorw.
Yeah, they're gonna take an offensive lineman in there. So
yeah,
let's hope
hope it's later or a tackle. Yeah.
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 Let's hope it's a couple late Ophi tackles.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was saying, like, I'm curious, like, how teams are gonna try and trade back to next year too. Because there's been so many trades, it's insane. Like, I feel like I can't even keep track of what team has what pick anymore. So it's been an interesting draft for sure. How's that, Zach?
Let's see. I'm still getting the feedback in this year. I'm gonna take out this AirPod. Okay. Can you speak?
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes. Okay.
Better.
Not bad. It's working. Oh, geez, this is tough.
Maybe it's the AirPods.
Probably so.
Poor Zach.
Okay, try.
The guy just wants to get through the podcast so he can get a few winks of shut eye.
Yeah, no, I'm good, but
all
right, I'm gonna fight through this. No problem.
No, just.
This is a recipe for disaster.
Just take them out and change the setting. It's fine. We'll use this recording instead of your local recording. This is how the tofu.
Okay, is this okay?
The tofu is made.
Is this okay?
Actually, it doesn't sound terrible. Yeah.
But
right, great.
No, you're still using your mic.
Yes, exactly.
But it's coming out of your speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. Sorry about that. I apologize for our listeners there for the technical difficulties. That is on me. It's not on Marissa.
I'll remove it in the audio. This is only for the live audience.
So to get back, Steen has an interesting backstory. He's from Miami, that area, military family. His grandfather won a Medal of Honor. Very impressive. So we spoke to Tyler Steen.
Yeah,
he fell on a grenade.
He fell on a grenade. He sacrificed his life for
his life. Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
Not just any old medal.
Well, no, it's a Medal of Honor, so it's not any old medal. But no, I mean, he went to Vanderbilt, graduated from Vanderbilt, so that's an outstanding school. So looking forward to meeting him in person. But good size, quick. The athleticism's there. I mentioned the Driscoll
321.
thing. Yeah, I mentioned the Driscoll thing because of the arms. And again, I'm going back to Stoutland here. Don't think it was an amazing pick. I don't think it was a bad pick. I thought it was a solid pick that they get the benefit of the doubt for.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, let's move on to what was the much more interesting pick, I think, of these two picks. Again, you thought that maybe they would consider moving down here because they didn't have a lot of mid-round capital, but they stick and they make a very interesting selection that, as opposed to Tyler Steen, who is very much within like the Howie Roseman ethos. Take a meat and potatoes offensive lineman on day 2, work ahead. That's what we know to expect. Instead, they take safety Sidney Brown in the 3rd round. This is the highest they have selected a safety since Jaquan Jarrett in the 2nd round in 2011. Howie Roseman has talked before about the difficulty of evaluating safeties out of college. It's not just an Eagles problem. This is a league-wide problem. You could argue that the league is probably worse at drafting safeties than any other position, aside from maybe quarterback, which just gets artificially thrown up the board to begin with. So it's a very difficult position to project. Obviously, it's a need for the Eagles. You know, right now they'd be starting Reed Blankenship and Terrell Edmonds at safety. So Howie acknowledged that, you know, it was a need, so they had to evaluate it. I'll give you his exact answer if I can pull it up here. He said, the important thing for us. Oh no, hold on. I think the first part is we still need safeties, right? So we've got to evaluate them. And obviously for us, when I talked about that, referencing it being difficult, I was talking about the specific usage. When you look at Sydney, the way they used him at Illinois, they used him at a lot around the box. He would blitz, he'd cover a tight end, he'd play in the run game. So he kind of had an incomplete evaluation. Then at the Senior Bowl, they did a tremendous job, gave us an opportunity to see him being a post player, playing in the deep path, playing on one-on-ones. You saw the athleticism, and I think that really helped complete our process. So that's the evaluation of Sidney Brown. As opposed to, as you talked about, like the consensus picks of last night, Jalen Carter, top guy on the board if he's on your board. Nolan Smith, top guy on the board. Even Tyler Steen, if you're saying top guy on the offensive line board, you pick him off. Sidney Brown is, depending on whether you classify Brian Branch as a safety or not, he was either the 1st or 2nd safety drafted.
Exactly.
And on the consensus big board, you know, on Arif Hassan's consensus big board, he would have been the 4th safety. On Dane Brugler's beast, he was the 10th safety. So you're going out on a limb a little bit to say, you know, sort of puff your chest out, say, we have evaluated this better than everybody else. We think that this guy is the best safety available. And so, like, process-wise, you know, that's a bit of a concern for me, right? Like, that's generally speaking, not great process to think that you know better than other teams. So that's one way to think about it. On the other hand, you know, Howie Roseman talked about this for them was, as he has explained, a red star player. And what that means is on the Wednesday before the draft, they go around the room, all the scouts who have, you know, spent their entire year evaluating these players, evaluating these prospects, evaluating them as people. They have to put their name like on one guy who, in their estimation, checks every box, meaning that on the field, they can do everything. They're good leaders. You know, they were team captains. They did very well in the athletic testing process. There are no medical issues. They are like what we want as a Philadelphia Eagle. And there are guys up and down the draft board at every sort of level. And for them, Sidney Brown was one of those guys. This is a guy who people in the building absolutely loved. And there's probably a little bit of risk that, like, you could overvalue that. You could artificially push that up the board. But I also think when you're the guy in charge and you have these people who are doing the job all year long, there is something to be said for listening to those people when they have real conviction. And so I respect the pick. I think it makes sense to me. We can talk more specifically about the player and what he brings to the table, but just in terms of the process, it's a little bit like evening the scales for me on, I don't love going out on a limb to pick a position that's difficult to project, but I also think, like, at some point you got to listen to your people.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It makes sense to me. I am okay with what seems otherwise like a bit of a reach.
So I lean more toward the latter of what you said. I like conviction in the draft. I recognize you need to have a dose of skepticism, or I would say more than a dose of skepticism and humility to know that, right, that they're humans, we're all humans evaluating humans, right? So there's going to be human error involved. But I like to hear the conviction in a player, and when you find someone and you say, this is our guy, like this is the one that we believe in as a group, this is the one that we're willing to stake, you know, it's a little high, it's hyperbole to say stake our reputations on, but like we're going out on a limb and saying this is the safety that we want on the team. I respect that. And I said to you as we were walking away, it reminds me a lot of what I heard about Avonte Maddox in 2018, that they just really liked this guy and they wanted this player, this personality in the building. At that point, they were willing to like to overlook some, maybe shortcomings here. In terms of
they took him over Josh Sweat.
Yeah. In terms of type of safety, I tend to like the cornerback safety like the slot safety hybrid, someone who's maybe a little more or a little less tight-hipped, rather, in terms of the scouting reports of him, who has that versatility. I like the corners who move over to safety. You see that a lot now too, obviously. But if they have conviction of him in him, the college production is terrific, right? I mean, you're looking at someone who was second team All-American last year, right? Started over 50 games in college.
Exactly 50 games.
50 games.
Precise.
His led the Big Ten in interceptions, and the athletic testing is good. Check boxes there. His jumping ability, jumps off to you. That's something that the Eagles value. But yeah, you're making a projection from the way he played at Illinois to the way he's going to play in the NFL, and there is risk associated in that. But I guess I was swayed to a degree by their conviction, because like this is somebody that they want to go out on the limb and get.
And I also think there's something to be said for, like, if you really think you need a safety, and I was sort of poking around at the press conference about whether this was like a Sean Desai pick, because he's coming in, he's installing a new scheme. He is a safeties expert, right? That was his position. I was wondering if he was like putting his thumb on the scale for the safety that he wants. I didn't get that impression from Howie Roseman's answer. It sounded more like this was a scouts guy, right? Even though they were taking into account, what the Desai defense is going to look like. But I think there's something to be said for, like, if we think we need a safety to step in and be like a relatively impact player, we want the guy that we want, right? And so this was obviously the guy that they wanted. I think that's okay. In terms of the profile, I actually really like the profile. I'm not going to pretend that I've crushed the film on Sidney Brown, but I always think there's something to be said for at positions like safety and linebacker, where it's so much about reading things that, like, and I'll give your boy a little nod here, Zach. Like the Gladwellian 10,000 hours of starting experience, of seeing things and being able to play fast, I think matters, and I think there's some correlation behind that if you look into it. And the guy started for 5 years. He started 50 of his 51 games. Yeah. He's not super old. He just turned 23, which is fine. I like the profile, and obviously they did their homework on the player or on the person, so we'll see how that plays out. I do like. I'm a little bit skeptical because it's a little bit away from consensus. He's like a touch short. He's 5'9" and 3/4, but he's touch like a rock. He's a rocked up 211. He tested very well in the pre-draft process, so you can understand why he was given a red star. He has checked all of these boxes. I am excited to see him in training camp.
Yeah, me too.
Like I'm excited to see this guy on the field and see what they love so much about him. That's sort of how I feel about it.
I agree. Now, in your worst case mock draft, you had Antonio Johnson as the second round pick. You were low on Antonio Johnson. They had,
and I'll tell you what, though, it was less about Antonio Johnson than it was about sort of doing this, which was putting your chest out, saying we think this guy's the best safety when there's not a lot of evidence that like teams can identify who the best safeties are. And so that's why I am a little bit wary.
And this was considered a bad safety class.
Yeah.
Right. You're taking him around the range that Kyler Duggar went, or around the range that Jeremy Chin went, right? In that back half of the second.
Who they were interested in, right?
Top half of the third. But I'm saying those players were more like high picks. Well, no, not Kyler. I think Kyler Duggar was an earlier pick. So
Duggar was, I think, mid round 2. He went before Chin. Chin went late round 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So Sidney Brown was not a player. I think there was who people would have said this is the top safety in the class, or the second best safety in the class, depending on the way you categorized Brian Branch. And there were other guys who were interesting. You know, the Penn State guy Jair Brown was there. I mean, if you wanted to wait a bit, Alabama's Jordan Battle has a lot of experience. Georgia's Christopher Smith, if you want to go back to that Georgia well. I think
Battle might make sense for them. But.
Yeah, JL Skinner, if you wanted a bigger type guy. There were corners who could go over. I mean, I'm doing the shadow draft in the sense that I'm not writing it the way you are, but I'm being mindful of the decisions that I would have made. I would have gone Keely Ringo at that pick as a corner, as a 20-year-old corner with starting experience, with height, weight, speed, and
he's still on the board.
Exactly. So the league clearly has a much different evaluation than I did there.
I think there must be an injury thing with him, because otherwise the profile is too good for him to go undrafted. I wonder if there's like there used to be a thing with the Alabama players that like they were all a little bit banged up. They'd played so many games that it was like there were all these knocks on these guys medical wise. I wonder if that, like, Darnell Washington fell, Ringo's still on the board. I wonder if there's something to that.
Well, the Eagles should hope that's not the case, because their top 2 picks went there. Yeah. So this was also not considered a good safety class. That's also the interesting thing, is that if you were to stack positions, the 2 positions that they took tonight were considered 2 of the weaker positions in the draft this year.
That's a good point.
So you're getting relatively depressed value compared to other years. But again, that doesn't mean that you're not getting good players. You're just really trusting your evaluation.
But it's also like they took who they thought was the best or second best safety on the board, right?
That's my point. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm saying, is it the type of thing where, it's like when a team needs a quarterback in a year when the quarterbacks aren't that good. Are you talking yourself into? Are you saying this is the best quarterback we can get?
I think that's a real concern.
Yeah, because they know they needed a safety, right? And I don't think they drafted for need, but I think they looked at the safeties this year and they found one that they could all get around here.
Yeah, there's one other thing that at play here, and you think about all the guys who got hired for head coaching jobs because they had met Sean McVay one time. And you have to wonder how much of a role it played here for the Eagles that Sidney Brown in his past has spent time with Michael and Marissa Dunn.
Let's get to that.
I thought you were going to something serious there.
This is serious.
This is the shine. I mean, no wonder.
I mean, we met him at the combine. He is part of the same agency as Michael, along with his brother, Chase. So Michael was so impressed by him. They had a great conversation one night at dinner, and he just seems like such a good guy. Like everything you're saying, like hitting on that red star. So yeah, I'm very happy for them, obviously. And they come from they had a tough upbringing. And they both it's an awesome story. So I definitely was very excited when I saw that pick come across the board. So I'm definitely rooting for him for sure.
I think that evaluation carries more weight than evaluations that you might get otherwise. And the reason I say that, it's like when they say, when a scout goes into a school, you want to talk to the cafeteria worker and you want to talk to the custodian, because if you're just talking to people who like they are naturally going to play themselves up to, the head coach, the captain of the team, right? So you might not get you might not get who the person really is. If he's sitting at the dinner table.
Yeah, and it was like a giant table. There was a lot of people. It wasn't like this, and had great conversation with Michael. He made sure to say goodbye when he was leaving, like, nice to meet you, great manners. So, very, very impressed by that.
Yeah, to go to another Malcolm Gladwell thing, Bo. He values he values typical performance over optimum performance, like what you are all the time on a regular basis more than what you are at your best. And the example with Michael would be an example of typical performance relative to optimum performance.
I don't think there's anything typical about Michael Dunn. How dare you?
Well, I do have a few questions in the chat because this Red Star thing is very interesting. People want to know if the Eagles have drafted another Red Star player.
Yeah, they have.
Who is it?
So Devontae Smith was a Red Star player for them.
But he said they've got, they've got like 14 guys on the roster who are Red Stars.
Okay.
And it's not,
but they didn't like name all.
He mentioned Devontae Smith. He mentioned Landon Dickerson.
And actually, my understanding is Dickerson doesn't fit the profile because there were the medical concerns, but
he didn't mention medical in his Red Star thing. Okay. He said,
I would imagine that's part of the process. The idea is that like this guy checks every box.
I don't know if the medical would be, because
of course it would though. I mean, he didn't say it, but of course it would be a part of the thing.
He didn't say it, but of course it would be part of the thing.
So from what I understand of the meaning of it.
Here, okay, so this.
But he's speaking contemporaneously. I mean, extemporaneously rather. He's not like reading off of a definition.
Sure, but okay. So Red Star player, what does that mean? That's the question. Quote Howie Roseman. That's a guy who kind of exemplifies what it means to be an Eagle. So it's great character, captain, testing numbers, intelligent, plays the way it should be played, practices the way it should be played. We sit there the day before the draft and we do the Wednesday night, right? We did that Wednesday. We go around the room and we give every scout a chance to stamp their Red Star on guys. Goes back. It's a long tradition, not only here, but a couple of other places that people have been. And when we're looking at the draft board, we have a Red Star on the guys. And Jeffrey, a lot of times will go, hey, don't forget. And we're deciding between these two guys. That's a Red Star.
Right.
And then he mentioned Devontae. He mentioned Landon Dickerson. He said, I could probably go down 15 Red Stars. We like our Red Star guys because they're passion players for us.
Sure. Yeah. I didn't hear anything in there that means medical is definitely not a part of it, but
I didn't say no, but you're like, of course medical's a part of it.
Well, I feel like
medical's definitely a part of it.
I think the idea is that this guy like checks every box. And you're putting your it sounds like a really fun, like I'd love to be just like in the room for the energy around that process. Like that must be so fun. Like, go, like, this is your guy, go put your star on this guy. Like, that sounds so fun.
It would be like if the Athletic was evaluating, they would make you their Red Star guy. No, seriously,
I don't think that is the case.
They put you in company newsletters. They put you in company.
This company newsletter thing. You have got to lose it.
You they have you giving presentations to the entire company. Like it's you're one of their Red Star players.
I feel like it carries a lot of weight though. Like now, like going into that locker room, Sidney Brown knows like he's a Red Star. I mean, like he obviously has the character, but like now I feel like he's like, I got to live up to my Red Star.
Poor Tyler Steen is like, oh, I didn't get a Red Star.
But
I do wonder if I
Wait,
do
real
wonder if
quick
there is some kind of concern of like your artificial, like these guys maybe get pushed up the board too much, but
Yeah.
it makes sense. You want to get the guys you love. Like,
So the medical thing, I was going to bring that up because that's actually there was one line now he missed time over his career at Illinois,
mhm.
but there was a line in Dane's Beast where he said scouts say he has a history of concussions.
Mm.
So that's something that it's at least something to be mindful of.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. Now
Chance for them to get his brother too. That would be a great story,
Ace? Yeah.
Zach.
give me
Totally.
your
And he's
spread out
Canadian.
your
Yes, and
100
Canadian.
turkeys here, Zach, between these three possibilities for week 1. Your starting safeties are Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship. Your starting safeties are Sidney Brown and Terrell Edmonds. Your starting safeties are Reed Blankenship and Terrell Edmonds.
30, 40, 30.
And what's the 40?
The middle one is Edmonds and Brown.
Okay. I think I would go. And it's interesting because it does seem like all of these guys are like slightly more box players than post players. And I can hear Deniz yelling in my ear that there's probably no such thing in this defense as a box safety and a post safety. There's just left and right, and they're interchangeable. But at least in terms of their skill sets, that seems to be the case. I think I would go. I think I would go Brown, Blankenship.
I knew you were going to do that. Yeah.
33.
Oh.
Brown, Edmonds, 35. And then what do I got left? 32. 32 on
Okay.
on Brown, or no, Blankenship, Edmonds. I think it's like this is the like the main attraction of training camp battles. This is going to be one on the field, I think.
That's not what I thought you would be so pro Blankenship Brown and anti Edmonds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What exactly did they pay him?
You can look that up. I like Edmonds. I look at Edmonds comparable. He reminds me of 2021 Anthony Harris, right? Like an experience.
They gave him $2 million with $600,000 guaranteed. I think it's going to be Brown and Blankenship now.
I
think Edmonds might not make the team.
You're so high on Blankenship.
I mean, I've seen more from Blankenship. He was good last year, but I don't know. I think the Vegas odds, and you know that they've got these, right away, is probably Edmonds and Brown.
If there's anyone who can scope it out during camp, I know it's you.
Yeah, when you continue to gas me up like this, it comes off as false.
And Jimmy is really the defending champ of the King of the Beats, right? Is that what we call it?
You know what, Marissa? I don't need that from you tonight. Because Jimmy has taken a big lead in the Duck Duck Juice draft. Now,
wow, how do you if Jimmy wins 2 games?
Well, the interesting thing about
the one calendar year,
the Duck Duck Juice draft is that it's very first timer friendly. Zach won in his first time. I won in my first time. Jimmy is probably going to win in his first time. The only one who didn't win in their first time was Shield. Something to be said there.
I'm jealous of Shield.
Jimmy and Zach entered the day with 7 points for defensive end and defensive tackle. Jimmy had safety, so he's going to get some points there. Now, Jimmy also had interior offensive line, and I have tackle.
Ooh.
They announced him as guard.
Yeah.
He was announced as a guard. He played college at tackle. We already talked about this. It's going to be where he lines up first.
In minicamp. Yeah.
The first time we get to
I'm glad we clarified
on him at a position, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I could steal the points there. If not, Jimmy's running away with this bad boy.
I don't like that threshold there because a lot of minicamp, it's about numbers. If Lane Johnson doesn't show up,
That's true too.
right?
That's very true.
They need guys who can play tackle snaps. They might be
Again,
like
we've already made the rules.
they announced him as.
But
the
I feel
team
like with
said
a
he
guy,
was a guard.
if they're gonna like, want him to be like the first interior guy in or whatever, I think they're gonna get him to be playing interior. Like, I think he'll be lining up at guard. I don't think they'll like.
I would think so
numbers
too.
him.
But,
I don't think he'll be
we've
a
already
body
made the
that they
rules here, so
move.
we can't change the rules now that the pick has been made.
Bo is a big changing rules guy, but
Please, Zach's trying to take credit for predicting the Eagles were going to draft Nolan Smith at 10, as if like he nailed that pick. Get out
no,
of here.
for picking Nolan Smith.
So Jimmy's doing well there.
Wait. You can't just throw a stray at me and not give me a chance to defend myself.
Go ahead.
I predicted that the Eagles would draft Nolan Smith. They drafted Nolan Smith. Therefore, it's an accurate
The
prediction.
whole thing is about Jimmy is keeping track of everybody's Eagles predictions over the past few years. There are a couple people who have gotten their first round pick correct. And
I got their first round pick correct. They
Zach,
drafted
you
Nolan
didn't.
Smith in the
This is
first
such
round.
a bad faith argument.
They drafted Nolan Smith in the first round.
But that's not what he's tracking. He's tracking the first pick. There's such a difference between 10 and 30. You do not believe in your heart that you were correct about that. They didn't draft Nolan Smith at 10. They drafted him with their second pick. That's a huge difference.
So it's all a matter of degree. It's like it's.
I say half point.
Zach, this is beneath you.
I think he should get some
I don't
credit.
care that much about. I'm like you're allowed to adjudicate it's like tomato. You can say the way.
No. You were really going to bat at this with Elliot.
Well, Elliot and I were
at the press
discussing it.
conference.
I really, it's not a big deal to me. I'm not trying.
It seems like a pretty big deal.
Bo, I swear on my life, it's not a big deal to me. It was just a conversation Elliot and I were having.
You cannot take credit for that.
I cannot take credit for predicting that they would draft Nolan Smith
and as their first pick. Yes. As their first pick, that was your prediction. That was wrong.
I mean, didn't Shield get credit for drafting Jack Driscoll? I don't think he had him in the 4th round.
That's a different game. That's
Zach. That's a different game.
Sorry about that. All right.
Get your game straight.
Turkeys to the Kingdom. I'm still kicking your butt. I'm going to win that. And the draft, I'm still winning. I have 2 correct picks, but with 4 picks in round 6 and 7, all it takes is probably one person to get hit here, and they can steal it. So you've got Anthony Johnson and Israel Abaconda, who are still on the board. Shield has Braden Daniels, Jaquelin Roy, and I think that's it. I've got Adi Adabaraway, who's still available. Mm-hmm. Xavier Hutchinson, Keely Ringo, who's still available. Henry To'o, Brandon Hill, and Cameron Mitchell. So looking good for me, but all it takes is one steal there.
There you go.
Speaking of character count, Zach, there is one thing I'd like to discuss with you.
Okay. Let's hear.
Okay. And this tracks with what we know about you in the bathroom.
Oh man.
Excuse. What's this?
When we got the text that Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni were heading to the podium. We had to go to the press conference. I needed to pee. I was waiting for the bathroom. And you emerged from the bathroom, and I went in after you. And I went in there, Zach. The lid was up.
Yeah, I'm not touching that. It was up when I got there. It was up when I left. I wasn't touching the lid. I wasn't touching the lid.
Zach, it's a communal, like, intersex bathroom. You have to close the lid. You have to put the lid down. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
Character count, Zach. Marissa, am I wrong?
I mean, I just can't believe that it's 1:29 in the morning and we're discussing this. Yes. But I will say, like a lot of things, I'm kind of in the middle. I am a germaphobe and would not want to touch that. but I would probably use my shoe and
Use your foot. Yeah.
kick it down with my foot.
Get a paper towel.
Yeah.
You don't know
Because
who's coming
I
in
would
after you.
hate if I had to go in there
Exactly.
and it was up. I hate when I have to go in there and it's up in my
There are
own
women
house,
there.
let alone in a public place.
I mean, respectfully, if we want to get into the bathroom etiquette of the media house at the Nova Care Center, I think that is pretty far down the list relative to the other gripes one could have. But all right, I hear you there. Honestly, I try to get in and out of that room as quickly and cleanly as like
it's not a good place to be.
Yeah, exactly. And from where I'm sitting, like in the room, I don't want to spend
Yeah, you do. Zach unfortunately sits directly next to the bathroom, and those are paper thin walls.
Yes, exactly.
So he knows what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell who in that room ate too much chicken and pizza on a given night. So,
he's got stories.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
Yeah, for sure.
But in the future, I think, in the interest of your
Okay.
fellow
So you
people,
put it down?
I think you should put it down.
Okay.
Did you, Bo?
Yes, of course I did.
Okay.
Because I have compassion for my fellow humans.
Now,
Character counts.
Now let me. Well, okay. Please don't pull out the character counts thing, 'cause I take a lot of pride in my character. I do have one question here. Okay. Can you? Oh, actually, I shouldn't even ask this question. We can ask it off the air.
No, you've started it. Let's go.
No. I'm not.
No, go ahead. Come on.
No, I was about to say.
Let's spit it
I was
out.
about to say, can you account for whether there are only males in the building at that time? But the reason I stopped there is because there are such nice female security guards who work
true.
there who go in there. So you are absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, you never know who's coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually do have a question for Zach.
Is it pee related?
No, not to extend this pod longer.
Wait, can we have questions for Bo, please? Like why do we?
No. This is a question about Bo.
Wow,
and
okay.
if people are watching on YouTube, they can see underneath Bo's name. He gave his title tonight, Draft Tweeter. So I want to know what you thought of Bo's live tweeting of the draft tonight.
I found it annoying, honestly. I found it patronizing, and like I didn't find it to be a like a joke. I found it to be like a mockery as opposed to like a joke and fun.
It's an Easter egg for the listeners, the people who stayed up late last night.
Yeah,
listening.
I didn't find it to be like
Listen. You know what, Zach? I'm all about self-improvement. You told me that I wasn't tweeting enough and getting out enough information that was relevant to the draft for my followers, and so I tried to take your advice.
Well, you did take my advice. I mean, it doesn't have to be in saying the pick's coming there. You literally took my advice in that you tweeted out insight about the Eagles pick. That was direct. That was such keen insight that the PR department saw your tweet.
That's not me taking your
brought
advice,
it to
by
Howie
the way.
Roseman and said this might come up in the press conference. It goes. It's the same way how you're a Red Star player at the Athletic. You're probably, frankly, a Red Star reporter inside that building to them as well.
It's like, boy, we hate this guy. Let's watch out for this stupid question that's coming your way.
You got a bow tonight.
Yeah,
He's
you
been
got
getting a lot of them.
I mean, I still disagree with the entire premise. I'm going to tweet something if I think it's worthwhile. Otherwise, like, nobody cares.
But the things we talk about at 1:34 a.m., they really care about, right? Like,
yes,
yeah.
This medium is much different.
So if I'm tweeting relevant draft information out to 75,000, 80,000 people, whatever.
Oh, a follower flex. Whoa, big for his britches.
I don't know what the number is.
Got way more followers than you.
That's not what I'm saying.
78,000.
Okay, 78,000. Okay, so if I'm tweeting that out to 75,000, That's not important. But talking about bathroom habits at 1:34 a.m. on the podcast,
it's a
that
different
is
medium.
pertinent information that the audience needs.
Yes, because our listeners are here for these types of discussions.
And I'm telling you, my followers, I can't.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Mine are not.
Okay. Okay.
My followers are not. And I like it that way. You know how easy it would be to just get 50,000 followers by tweeting every Eagles thing? Not like you. I mean, like,
Wow.
like, oh, here's every transaction. Oh, the Eagles are linked to this guy. Like, oh my gosh. What if they're going to get DeAndre Hopkins? You think this is going to happen? Like, who's got time for that? I'm trying to live my life and not be on Twitter as much, which I'm not good at. But I don't have any interest in being, and I don't think anyone's following me for the Eagles have signed, TK.
Well, clearly not. Yes.
Yeah. There's other people who do that. Why do I need to do that?
Well, I mean, we can have that conversation at another point, but yeah, we really don't have to do that at 1:36 a.m. Maybe we save that for a June pod or something.
Yeah, hopefully Blue Sky will invite me soon and I can just leave Twitter altogether.
I don't understand the reference. So
Me neither.
It's like a Twitter shell. All right, Zach. It's impossible to predict, but with 4 picks tomorrow, are there any positions you have your eyes on?
No, I think they're going to take more high upside swings. And Howie kind of inferred that or implied that rather tonight. I think they
have done a really good job in the 6th and 7th round.
And when I say high upside swings, you're talking Jordan Mailata is the example you always look at, but like a Bryce Brown type. Prince Tega Winogo was an upside swing when they took it, right? It didn't necessarily work out, but there are there's different, I heard
Wes Watkins.
In the 6th round, I heard a good interview with Joe Banner at one point a few years ago, where he was talking about like success in late rounds, and essentially what he said is you can't think that like you've out evaluated a player that's like a prominent, a starter at a Big Ten school, right? Like you didn't out evaluate everyone else on that. So you need to find some type of reason why they're there that is, an inefficiency, if you will, right? Like,
well, it's like risk tolerance, right? It's like Trey Smith falls to the 6th round, and because everybody knows he's got this heart condition, but are we willing to take that risk?
That's the
in
point.
The 6th round, probably, right? Like,
Jalen Mills in the 7th round was an example of that, right? Like, is there a mitigating factor that is causing them, or is there either a small school player or and the small school thing has changed quite a bit in recent years, but like a player who plays a different sport, they took Jeremy Bloom at one point. It didn't work out, but that's when they took Jordan Mailata, Bryce Brown was this big recruit who basically didn't play college football because of all this stuff going on. So so I thought that was an astute observation. I think that's the type of approach they might take. And then in the undrafted market, you kind of focus sometimes on players who had productions but don't have traits. TJ Edwards, Reed Blankenship. Those are examples of some success they've had on the undrafted market. And Howie had an interesting nugget tonight where he said that they give out bonuses the following year.
This was really interesting.
Scouts or position coaches for undrafted players that they signed. So
who made the roster?
Yes, who made the roster? Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yeah, so it is bonus day, and he said that. And Nick said, "Why did they pay him a year later?"
Right,
which is a good question. And Howie said maybe it should collect interest. He mentioned 3%, so it depends, what bank.
They should do that I imagine the reason they do that is because it's like when everybody's together and you're getting excited about the draft. You could do it in the beginning of the draft process, right? When everyone's together, that might be a nice kickoff to the draft season.
Or because sometimes you carry a guy in the 53 and then you cut him the next day. And so what's the they probably need a guy like Bo in there to come up with defined rules for the game to determine. You need to spend X amount of days.
I would love to do that. That sounds great.
Days with the 53. Yeah.
I think just generally speaking, I'd like to see a linebacker who could, compete to play. Like, Nicholas Morrow's no great shakes. I think we sort of expect that they may add a veteran there at some point, but I would kind of like to see like a TJ Edwards type as opposed to a Davion Taylor type, like not betting on the traits, betting on a guy who has played and hoping that could play at the next level.
Like Ivan Pace. Yeah.
Isaiah Moore, Cam Sims, is that his name, from Indiana? I would like to see a wide receiver or a running back. So, some swing on an offensive weapon. You probably would like to see a corner. And I don't know who you see how the board falls, but
yeah. I would also say to Eagles fans, check out the depth charts of teams that drafted players these past 2 days, and because you'll find guys who are odd men out. Like the DeAndre Swift name has already come up, but this is when you can see guys become available because someone was drafted who's going to get playing time, and there's a fourth year.
Bless you, Marissa.
Bless you, Marissa. There's a fourth year player going into the final year of his contract, and they're willing to trade him to open up playing time for somebody else. So that is certainly something to monitor at linebacker, potentially wide receiver. We'll see.
All right. Good stuff, guys. We made it through. We made it through the mud.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one pod left. So, for Zach and his 78,000 followers, and Marissa, I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow as we wrap up the Eagles 2023 draft. As always, thanks for watching, and we love you.